Hi, guys, welcome back. Today we are continuing our series, The Middle, and today I wanted to talk about letting go. That is something that's really just kind of been in the forefront for me these days. A lot of things I need to move through and kind of let go of. And the truth is, letting go can just mean so many things, and that meaning can change from person to person. Depending on what season you're in, it can change. So, I really wanted to get into that today and ask you, what are you letting go of? Welcome back to Soulful Wanderings, the space where we search for meaning in everyday life and honor the lessons that help us grow. I'm Heather and I'm your host. And before we get started, we would love it if you would subscribe to our podcast. And you can also head over to our socials and follow us over there. And all of that information will be in the show notes. So, at the time of this recording, we are seeing some actually pretty big astrological things that are happening. And I'm going to, I have full disclosure, I am not good at astrology. There's so many of those things that I just struggle to follow and understand. If you can guide me through it, I can get it. But I'm not very good at just following it and sharing that information. But I do follow a lot of people that do that themselves. And oh my goodness, there was just recently a full moon. There are retrogrades. There's just, oh my gosh, there's conjunctions of different planets. And let's just say that the energy is really high. And I'm not sure if it's that or what, but I'm going to admit that I am just salty as fuck lately. It is just, I am, my emotions are high, I guess. My fuse is short, all the things. So I got to thinking about it though, and I think it actually started a few days ago. I think it was before the full moon actually. My husband calls me, and he says, we have a little problem. And now I need you to understand there's been some shit going on with his family, illnesses, accidents, just all kinds of things, to where he even asked me one day, he goes, you think you could do the witchy thing and see if we're cursed? And between you and me, I kind of think they are, but that's another story, I guess, that we may get into another day. But there's just, suffice to say, there's some shit going on, okay? And then we've also had some weird things happening for us. Nothing horrible, just kind of little things that when he said it, I'm not gonna lie, I think my heart kind of sank a little bit. That I'm thinking, I said, what do you mean we have a problem? And it's 9:30 in the morning on a Friday. Okay, so I don't know about where you live, but here there's a lot of places that will just shut down by noon on a Friday. So I don't know. It's just not always a great time for something to go wrong. You know what I mean? So as it turns out, the back window of our SUV that he drives was broken. He sent me a picture. There were two big holes on either side of the window, and the rest did that that shatter cracked thing where it's sitting in place, but you can see all the cracks going across it, as windows do. So this is what I see in the picture. Now, where he works, there are a lot of construction vehicles and whatnot going in and out. And the truth is, my first thought was one of the trucks had something, sort of protruding off the back. You know how sometimes like a board or whatever is longer than the trailer or something. That was my first thought, was that something was hanging off one of these trucks, and when they backed up, they didn't hit the car, but they hit those windows. The other thing that seemed fairly obvious was maybe one of them, those big old tires, even, the rock popped out from under one of the tires. The thing that I found probably oddest about it was how it was on both sides. There was a hole on each side. And I was convinced that once you got into the back hatch that you were going to find a rock or something back there. By the way, he claims he didn't, but I don't know if he really looked either. And then you have people that say, well, it could have been the heat, because I don't know if you guys know, I'm in South Louisiana, And the heat down here is absolutely oppressive. And we are in, we're in July at this point. So we are starting to hit, we haven't even hit some of the hottest points, to be quite honest. Our feel like temperatures are in the hottest points of the year are usually into the hundreds, and the humidity is really high and whatnot. So it gets oppressively hot down here. So the truth is, for something to happen to a window in the heat is not out of the realm of possibility. But once again, it is 9:30 in the morning. The heat has not hit that point yet. And again, we are not at full on oppressive heat yet. So I was really just trying to process what is going on and how did this happen, because you know me, I have to know the how and the why. But at the end of the day, look, it happens. Okay. I wasn't happy about it, but it does happen. You know, things hit windows and they break. It was how it was handled that bothered me. You know, he said his boss wasn't there, but that when he got back, he would check the cameras, and he did, and said, well, there wasn't anything showing anything hit him or hit it. But one of the cameras is not even in full view of the window. So if something flew, one is far away, kind of on the other side of the parking lot. So if something flew up, you probably wouldn't see it in detail because it's so far away. And the other camera doesn't really show the whole area where he was parked. So if something flew up and hit it, you're not going to see it because it's out of camera range. So that was it. Okay, nothing hit it. And all I could think was, you're joking, right? I mean, he's worked there, God, 15 years? No, I think it's been more than that. A long time he's been there. And I've seen them bend over backwards to take care of things that happened to a customer, even in a couple instances where it really wasn't their fault, but they were involved in some way. So they just took responsibility for it, you know? And okay, maybe they're doing that so they don't get sued. I don't know, but I always thought it was because that's just the people they were, that they take care of people, right? So for my husband, he's worked there for many, many years, just nothing, nothing, no help, no nothing. Then his boss basically just left after that. I think he had another meeting or whatever. So he just left when he was done. And that was it. All right. The $450 to fix it did not make me happy. And money is often a concern, I think, for a lot of us, right? And you know, we've had a couple hits in just the past few weeks. You know, all the weird things I was talking about that had happened. Ours have been oddly financial, which I'm sure there's a reason behind that. But so I admit, okay, that the money was part of it. That was part of what was concerning me. But after a while, it really hit me what was really bothering me, because I was kind of a bit of a weepy mess, and just, I don't know, it was just sad. I was just, the whole part of me is going, why? What is going on? What is the lesson? What is it that I need to figure out? You know, I'm going through all the emotions, and I was angry. I was so angry that I felt like he had just left him. So yes, part of it's the money, part of it's concern of the money, but I knew I could figure that out. We're always fine. We always get provided for. And I know this. I think it hit me that it wasn't the money. It was the expectation. Hear me. I think they consider each other friends to some degree. Granted, they work for each other, you know, boss, employee relationship, all those things. But there is a level of friendship there. And I just kind of couldn't get over that there was just nothing. Not even offer to help clean it up, so that when he got ready to go much later that day, that he could go home without, you know, dropping pieces of glass all over. You know, that was going to have to get cleaned up and the car secured or protected. You know, we have afternoon thunderstorms down here all the time, you know, so now he's got these, you know, holes in the back of the car. How are you supposed to protect it from the weather? And look, maybe I'm just a girl and that people would help me differently, Maybe boys don't help in the same way. Maybe if a guy sees something with a guy, they don't automatically go and be like, oh, can I help? Maybe they figure, oh, they're a guy, they can handle it. Which, hell, that's an expectation too, isn't it? Oh my gosh, I just thought of that. Anyway, my point is nothing. I'm not even sure he said anything. Like, did he even say, oh, dude, that sucks? Do you get what I'm saying? There's kind of this common human decency thing. Where was that? So then, since all of that happened, there have been a couple other things that have happened, more directly to me that left me feeling some kind of way as well. Simple things, really, particularly at work. Okay, for instance, why am I getting a phone call when no questions were asked, nothing was looked for, no attempts evidently were made, just my phone rings asking me, where's this thing for this customer? A call saying, you can't find it, but you don't even know the person's name that it's for. So what had happened is I had left something with coworkers that was for a customer to pick up. I had written their name on the envelope, told them where it was. Look, this person is coming tomorrow. I'm putting the envelope right here. This is the person's name. Here's their name on the envelope. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But to me, when part of your job is to interact with customers and they say they're coming to pick something up, maybe the first thing out of your mouth should have been, oh, and what's your name? Maybe that would help with the search. Again, to me, feels like a no-brainer. Feels like it's part of the job. Truly not trying to rag on this person. I love them to death. They're actually really good worker, but there are times when there are things like that are happening that, again, the first thing out of their mouth should have been, hey, yeah, what's your name? Let me go look for that. But instead, my phone rang. Hey, I'm looking for this thing. After all the information had been conveyed, all the things had been said, they did nothing on their end to gather any information. Just pick up the phone and call me. And look, I know, that's a small thing, right? It is. It's a small thing, but it was kind of growing on top of these other things. And I could feel my frustration and my anger growing. So here we are, me basically being salty and at times weepy. I was kind of getting past the weepy part though. Now I'm just salty. And at first, like I said, I labeled it that my feelings were hurt because I think that's kind of where it was with the whole thing with my husband. It hurt my feelings. But then when the work thing happened, that's when it started dawning on me, no, this is an expectation that's not being met. And so now where I am is I'm trying to process how to shift that thinking and hear me, this will be easy, y'all. I'm kind of old. Kind of on the older end of the spectrum, I would say. And I've been like this kind of my whole life. So, I'm definitely in processing mode, trying to look at how I'm reacting and how I can shift that. But that will be harder to do, right? If I don't shift the core of why it bothers me. Is it conditioning? Was it an event in my life? Was it a trauma? This is when I'm using the theta healing modality. Y'all have heard me talk about this, where I look at those kinds of things and I start to work to change the subconscious belief. And the truth is, I think this one is going to be a little hard to get to, because I really suspect I'm going to have to dig pretty deep to figure this one out. So while I've been kind of processing all this and looking at, asking the questions of, okay, what's really going on? What's really bothering you? Trying to really find out where that core problem is so that I can figure out how to work on it. It dawned on me that the one with the boss, with my husband, was more based on an expectation of what I would do This is how I would react. I would try to help. I would try to make it right. Maybe that's that justice thing that comes up when you look at my personality. Maybe that's what that's about. But that is a particular type of expectation for that one. It's how I would do it. But the work thing, while it is to some degree how I would handle it in a customer service setting, it also feels a little bit like accountability. And I'm not sure I want to let go of that one. I think accountability is important, not only for growth, but just in the general treatment of others. So if you don't want to be nice and help someone, I mean that's one thing. That's a choice you make, obviously, and okay, that's fair. But doing your job is kind of another. So where I am at this point is I think I want to work on how I react when it happens. I want to make sure I handle myself in a way that's positive, that's communicative, and healing, no matter what the disappointing expectation result is or was. Yeah. So that's kind of that's kind of where I've landed at this point, is that and hopefully working on the reaction will, some of the other things will sort of fall into place as to how I feel about that and how that works out. But then another thought came to me. This goes to my control issues a bit as well, doesn't it? Look, I know I'm not the only one with control issues. Come on, show of hands. But I'm up high and proud. Y'all know control's a big one for me. I want to know the outcome. I don't want to be surprised, especially if it's going to be something bad. So if I control the situation, then nothing bad can happen, right? Yeah, right. But at the very least, I think for me, if I know it's coming, then I can be more prepared, sort of head it off at the pass or whatever. But how realistic is that? I mean, really? How often are we really going to be able to do that? Plus, doesn't it interfere with things happening? Okay, hear me out. I've been told before that God, Creator, can plan much bigger things for me than I can even begin to imagine. So I'm over here manifesting all these grand things, and this is what I want my life to look like. But what if God has something even bigger in mind? What if He's going, oh no, sweetie, it's going to be even better? So what if me controlling the situation actually stops the amazing thing from happening? Because it has no way in now? That thought actually makes me a little sick to my stomach when I think back to all the things I've tried to control in my life. Did I hold something up? Would I have been in a different place had I not held it up? And that's a whole different conversation, isn't it? Because I think Creator makes things happen in the time that they're supposed to. So I don't know that I really stopped anything, but maybe blocking it showed Him that I wasn't ready. Maybe it was time to wait. Again, I think that's a super deep thing that's not part of the conversation that we're having today, but it still made me think that it goes back to the control thing and the expectation thing. And look, I'll often pass this control thing off as me being an event planner or a marketing person, because the work I do requires a lot of planning, a lot of forethought. You got to think of all the things that can go wrong, and kind of head them off at the pass, like I said, and be ready for those things so that you can have a good event. And that's all true. That's all true. But let's be real. My love of control is more likely why I'm good at it, not the job making me that way. And then, of course, the Pisces intuition is on full display too, because generally I can kind of feel and see things, using my intuition, whether I really mean to or not. It tends to happen. But at the end of the day, it's all about control, right? This also brings us back to balance, doesn't it? I think I've talked about balance before, huh? Kind of balance between, work and home life and fun. And, you have to find that balance. So just like the expectation thing, there's more than one way that can appear. So, is there a balance with control? Do you know what I mean? There are times when that planning brain, okay, planning it out, planning out my business, my marketing, my events, or my podcast, that's super handy. But how do I find a balance between letting go, trusting my intuition, and knowing I can handle whatever's going to come up, and making sure I'm doing my job well? I guess kind of not going too far into the control. Because if we do our best to plan, if we make smart decisions, as best we can, and then just kind of let it go. Even with work, I can't control what's going to happen. I have to trust that I've done what I could. I've made the best plans I can, and if things happen, I'm going to have the ability to deal with it. I have help to get things done. So you plan the best you can, but then you kind of have to just let it go and let it happen and deal with what comes. That one goes a little deeper for me too, because one of the reasons it's hard for me is because I have trust issues. But again, that's something that, looking at the core belief of why, working on changing it and working on, I really feel like I'm going back to that place of, let's start with how I'm reacting to it in the moment. I think that is an important piece of this, because like I said, there may be some things that I want to let go of. I want to let go of my expectation of that, but there may be others that, that may be a valid expectation. So maybe I don't necessarily want to let it go, but maybe I just rethink how I handle it. So I think, as we all know, sometimes letting go means losing something. I think we've talked about this a little bit before, especially in the grief episode. But this could be the loss of a person, a job, a relationship. There's so many things that could bring loss in our lives. And I think all too often we try to push it to the side and we just sort of move through it without really processing it. If I don't think about it, if I just kind of push it over here or push it down, then I don't have to worry about it. I'm just basically going to ignore it and kind of hope it goes away. Or there's the other side. We may find ourselves stuck. We don't move on. Sometimes that's a choice of not trying to, or sometimes we're trying, but we're not really getting anywhere. I find that's generally because we don't want to let go. Something's really painful. Something you're really going to miss. It's hard to let go of that. It's very human to not want to let go of it. And then there's the comfort zone part of that. Those are really hard to let go of. You may be trying to let go of a job because you really loved it. You loved the people. You loved what you did. You loved all the things. Maybe you worked short days and you were able to get off early and go pick up your kids, or whatever it is. All the things that you liked about it. And it was comfortable. You knew the job. You knew the people, the routine, the paycheck. But maybe it had come to a point where it wasn't a good fit. Maybe it was toxic. Maybe it's just time to move on and grow and have a promotion somewhere else. So even though we know all those things, it can be hard to let go and to move on. And, that kind of fits with things like relationships as well. The comfort zone, even if it's bad, it's what you know. And sometimes letting go of that, even knowing that the thing on the other side is supposed to be better, at least on paper, it looks better. It's a promotion. It's all the things. But you don't know that. So it's very hard to let go of those things. And how often does that loss lead right into losing your identity? I know I'm like this. My hand is high in the air that I'm like this. Your job becomes part of you, and a change or a loss can start to make you kind of question who you are, right? In a relationship, you suddenly are alone, or maybe you're suddenly a single parent. And again, that leads you to questioning, okay, who am I really now? For me, that identity is very purpose driven. I've been a marketing professional and a creative for so long that that's really what I relate to. That's what I see myself as. I'm a mom and a wife and all those things, but I'm also, okay, well, who are you? Well, I'm a marketing professional. I'm a creative. I'm a photographer. I identify with all those things. And now I'm identifying even further as a healer, as an intuitive. That creative side is coming forward so much more. The writing side is coming forward so much more. So I'm feeling like there are things about the old me that I'm having to let go of. Those parts that no longer serve me as I move forward to this next new thing. Okay, maybe a quick side note. When people say it no longer serves, do you know what that means? I remember when I first heard it, I had to kind of think about that for a minute. What do you mean it no longer serves? I guess I just never heard it worded that way. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just a me thing. Maybe other people understand it immediately, exactly what that means. But reflection helped me see that, and reflection helps me continue to see that now. Basically, I'm looking at a situation, maybe it's with a job, and I see how it no longer fits my life or my purpose. Okay, well, that no longer serves me in a good way. My ability to organize and plan and things like that serves me well in the job that I do. That serves me well when I'm planning my marketing and things like that for this side business that I'm running. But there may be things about my job, my let's say my schedule or something like that makes things difficult. So maybe it no longer serves me. That's what that means. Maybe you have a friendship that before was really great, but maybe as you change, that person is just not as supportive as they've been before. So there may be things about that relationship that just no longer serve your life. Maybe that means that person was in your life for a season and maybe you're not as good of friends anymore in the future, or maybe just what you talk about changes, So that's what we mean when we talk about it no longer serves. There are things in your life that serve you well and others that don't. And sometimes you have to move on from those that don't. Anyway, I digress, I guess. But that's what we're really talking about, isn't it? Letting go of what no longer serves, what no longer fits, what makes us sad or angry. Those things don't serve us well. So maybe they need to go or they need to change somehow. And we've talked about grief in a previous episode, and this kind of goes right along with that thought process. When we let go, at times that creates a feeling of mourning and grief as we let go. Other times, letting go may be more of a change in thoughts or reaction. But any change can create a sense of mourning. Letting go of the comfort zone is a big one. And we find ourselves kind of being pulled back there over and over. Even if we've done some deep healing, we can find ourselves pulling back to that comfort zone. And just so you know, that's normal, right? For example, you may have to gradually change the habit, or you may find yourself just sort of recognizing, hey, I'm not reacting the same way I did before, or I got past that anger faster, or something like that. That's what I mean by change and growth often isn't a once and done. It tends to be this kind of continuous thing and a layered thing. So I guess I may say that a lot too, but that's very normal that you don't just go, oh, it's healed and it's gone. That's not always the way that works. Okay, so what are we saying here? Letting go isn't about losing something. I think it's about releasing our grip on the thing we thought had to happen. Sometimes letting go looks a lot like surrender. And I don't mean giving up. I mean kind of releasing that illusion that we can control people and outcomes or even timing. Because the only thing we can truly have control over is ourselves. And that's our choices and our reactions and then how we move forward. Maybe that's what I've really been talking about this whole time. Expectations. Or maybe Maybe it's more than expectations. Maybe it's attachment. Maybe it's the story we've written about how we think our life is supposed to unfold. And then when reality doesn't match that story, we try to grip it tighter. Maybe the invitation isn't to stop caring. Maybe it's just to loosen our grip. So maybe that's the question this month. Not what do I need to let go of, but what am I gripping so tightly that it is actually exhausting me? Maybe it's needing someone to apologize. Maybe it's needing people to understand you. Maybe it's needing your healing to happen faster. Maybe it's the picture you've always had of your career or the relationship you thought would last forever. Maybe it's the version of yourself you've outgrown, but you're still trying to drag along because she just feels familiar. Letting go doesn't mean pretending those things didn't matter. It just means deciding they no longer get to steer the rest of your life. So, of course, I have a few tools to consider that may help you work through some of this. The first tool is name the grip. So ask yourself, what outcome am I trying to control? And then write it down. Not the circumstance, the outcome. Because sometimes when you simply name it, it takes some of the power away. Number 2, separate what happened from what you expected. So take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle of the page, and on the left side, write what actually happened. And on the right side, what did I expect would happen? Sometimes the pain isn't in the reality. Sometimes it's in the gap between reality and expectation. Number 3, ask one honest question. Instead of asking, why is this happening? Try asking, what is this trying to teach me? Or, who am I becoming because of this? Because that shift can take you from victim to participant. Very important transition there. And tool number 4, practice one tiny release. This one's hard for me because I think I want things to happen in a big way. But ask yourself, what is one thing I could loosen my grip on this week? Not forever, just for this week. Maybe that's stop checking the email. Stop replaying the conversation. Stop trying to convince someone. Stop carrying responsibility that isn't yours. Small releases have a way of changing us way more than we expected. So here's what I keep realizing. Letting go isn't a single decision. It's something we have to practice. Sometimes that's every day. Sometimes it's every hour. We loosen our grip and then we find ourselves holding on again. And that's okay. Because healing isn't measured by whether you never struggle again. It's really more measured by how quickly you notice you've picked the weight up again. Maybe that's what living in the middle really is, that you're not finally sort of arriving at this place where nothing hurts anymore, but you're becoming someone who trusts themselves enough to keep opening their hands, to trust that what's meant for you can still find you even when you loosen your grip, to believe that whatever comes next, you'll meet it one day at a time. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with someone who might need it. And if you're enjoying the middle series, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our conversation next month. And if you're finding yourself in the middle of your own letting go, and that could be a relationship, career, grief, or maybe you are becoming someone new. You don't have to figure all that out alone, right? This is actually the stuff I love doing, this kind of work. And If you'd like somebody to walk alongside you for a while, I'd love to help. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind to yourself, and remember that even here in the middle, you're still becoming. Because letting go isn't something we do once. It's something we practice over and over again as we grow. And that's why it belongs here in the middle.